From the studios of Farm Journal Broadcast, this is AgDay.
Coming up today on AgDay, it's back. Milk delivered right to your door. How Amazon is getting in on the action. The U.S. Ag Secretary weighing in on the latest round of trade talks with China.
We will not be bought off as a country over purchases.
And conditions in parts of the country both dangerous and deadly.
Southern Minnesota was just shut for business for like 2.5 days. So.
AgDay, presented by the all-new Chevy Silverado, the strongest, most advanced Silverado ever.
Good morning, I'm Betsy Gibbon. Clinton is on assignment. A fierce winter storm slamming the western U.S. right now, bringing with it blasting winds, rain, and a fleet of snow to California. And in the upper Midwest and in the plains, it's been dangerously cold and snowy. A blizzard caused multiple pileups and paralyzed highways, stranding drivers, like this photo taken on Highway 14 outside of Rochester, Minnesota. Dozens of schools in 4 states closed due to the extreme cold and snow. Just look at snow piled up outside the 4-H building at Iowa State University. Plows struggling to keep up with it all. Like in this photo from Emmitsburg, Iowa. Schools in Butte, Montana closed Tuesday for the first time in at least 20 years. In portions of North Dakota and northern Minnesota. Strong wind made it feel like minus 40 degrees as the snow continued to pile up. And this is not the end of it. The cold expected to linger across the upper Midwest for the first couple of weeks in March. Several highways in southern Minnesota are just opening up after the storm dumped about a foot of snow in some places. Transportation officials reopened I-29 in northeastern North Dakota late Sunday, but warned travelers about poor driving conditions. One of those people caught up in it all, Machinery Pete's Greg Peterson. Greg was at an auction near Omaha over the weekend and has been trying to get home ever since. He finally started a venture out yesterday through Iowa and eventually back home traveling on I-90 to Minnesota. I talked with him after he got home.
Tons of cars, had been off the road the last couple of days north of Des Moines. And the roads were okay until you got up to Clear Lake, and then they were not very good. It was amazing crossing into Minnesota on 35. The number of semis going both ways was just astronomical. Southern Minnesota was just shut for business for like 2.5 days. So
Pete says the high winds may have been the worst part. And on the other side of the country, high winds also an issue, howling through much of northern New York State, cutting power to hundreds of thousands of homes and businesses and closing schools. Our friend John Kutchko capturing this video of Lake Ontario. He estimated wind speeds were 80 miles an hour at times. Those winds also creating dramatic mounds of ice onto shores of Lake Erie. And giant chunks of ice were spotted spilling over the banks of the Niagara River across from Buffalo. Well, meteorologist Mike Hoffman is here. And Mike, there's a worry over in Missouri that the Mississippi River could flood some places, especially when the snow melts. What are you looking at?
Well, it takes a lot of different factors that come into play. I think what we ideally would like would be a very slow warm up. So we warm up a couple of times, melt some of the snow, bring it down the river, and keep it from all happening at once. If it stays cold for a while, which I think it's going to, and then suddenly warms up, then that will be an issue. So that's just something we're going to have to watch as we head through the rest of the spring. In the meantime, let's check out the wind speed forecast as we head through the day today. You can see it is windy again across parts of the northern plains, especially North Dakota by later today, and parts of the western sections as well. Heading into the day tomorrow, not a lot of wind to start except in the Sierra Nevada mountains in California. But as we head through the day, we'll see the winds picking up across many parts of the west as another storm system comes into that part of the country. We'll have your forecast coming up, but first here are some hometown temps.
Introducing Farm Journal TV, on demand 24/7. AgDay, Machinery Pete TV. U.S. Farm Report on your phone and tablet. Download the Farm Journal TV mobile app today.
USDA is listening to what farmers and others in the ag industry have to say about the Farm Bill. During its first public listening session, USDA staff, including NRCS, FSA, and RMA, listening to the industry about its comments and concerns about the new Farm Bill. They heard people's thoughts on topics from crop insurance to hemp to conservation. The bill has yet to be implemented, even though it was signed by the president in December.
The timing of implementation is something we continue to hear about. We know that you're working expeditiously and that there were some unforeseen shutdown issues that maybe slowed the process down a little bit. But obviously getting the implementation moving as quickly as possible, and what the priorities will be for the 2019 crop year. Obviously that certainty out in farm country is really important.
USDA is expected to hold more listening sessions in the future. Optimism continues to build that a trade deal can be worked out with China as efforts continue to do something about the tariffs. Ag Secretary Sonny Perdue said U.S. negotiators are asking China to reduce tariffs on U.S. ethanol. He said, quote, "They are engaged in conversation, they listen and hear us, but we are at this stage unable to determine the willingness factor," end quote. China imposed tariffs of up to 70% on U.S. ethanol last summer. Perdue said he would like to see a level below 15%. He also said several ag issues were on the table during trade talks, including poultry, beef, and grains. Perdue announced last week on Twitter following those talks that China would be buying another 10 million metric tons of soybeans. He says Chinese buys of soybeans are imminent, calling it a show of good faith.
We will not be bought off as a country over purchases without eliminating some of the non-trade barriers that have existed in China and make sure that they have enforceability provisions going forward.
Perdue saying President Trump and Chinese President Xi Jinping will have to make the final decisions on any trade deal. But more beans are heading overseas. The USDA reports 120,000 metric tons were sold to Mexico. 48,000 metric tons is for delivery this year. Another 72,000 will be delivered later this year or next. Lots of news about weed killer glyphosate. Reuters reporting analysts at a Brazilian health agency have determined it does not cause cancer. But that report comes as a jury in a federal court in San Francisco will soon decide whether glyphosate, a chemical in Roundup, caused a California man's cancer. It's a trial that the plaintiff's attorneys say could help determine the fate of hundreds of similar lawsuits. Opening statements in Edwin Hardeman's lawsuit against Monsanto started Monday. The 70-year-old is the second plaintiff to go to trial of thousands around the country who claim Roundup causes cancer. A San Francisco jury in August awarded another man $289 million after determining Roundup caused his non-Hodgkin's lymphoma. A judge later slashed the award to $78 million. Meanwhile, U.S. Public Interest Research Group says it sampled popular beer and wine brands and says glyphosate was found in 19 out of 20 brands it tested. It did say the levels were far below those that could potentially cause harm in humans. Monsanto says studies have been established that glyphosate is safe. Hemp, expected to be a much bigger business in the coming years thanks to the Farm Bill allowing for the production of industrial hemp. And soon there will be a place for growers to take their product to be processed. Jen Canna broke ground on a hemp processing facility in Mayfield, Kentucky. That's in the western part of the state. Company officials expected to process 10,000 acres of harvested hemp into CBD oil. The company's 220,000 square foot facility is expected to be completed next year in time for harvest. Still ahead, why one analyst says the U.S. dollar could have a bumpy road ahead if there's a trade deal with China. And remember the days of milk delivery right to your door? How that could be coming back ahead on Ag Day. Federal Reserve Chairman Jerome Powell says the economy should keep expanding at a solid, though somewhat slower pace this year. But he warns of growing risks, including a global slowdown, volatile financial markets, and uncertainty about U.S. trade policy. He made those remarks during the Fed's semi-annual monetary report to Congress. Powell says the Fed will be patient in determining when to boost its benchmark policy rate in light of the various cross currents and conflicting signals. The Fed in December indicated it could raise hikes 2 times this year. Caterpillar shares dropped on Tuesday. That's after UBS analysts downgraded the stock from buy to sell. UBS slashed its 12-month price target by nearly 19% from $154 per share to $125 per share. saying it was due to slowing global construction. It comes after Caterpillar's disappointing fourth quarter earnings. At the time, the company blamed slowing demand in China for a 4% drop in sales in the Asia-Pacific unit. It sure was not a turnaround Tuesday for soybeans as that market dropped by double digits. Let's find out more from the floor of the CME.
Well, it has been a heavy day. We tried to start the overnight session off with a sort of a neutral tone, but we've been under quite a bit of pressure. Wheat extending its pretty significant losses from yesterday. Soybeans finally catching up a bit as well, although bouncing off their lows here at the end. And then corn continuing to follow the wheat to the downside. You know, we're breaking a lot of very key technical support points. Looks like charts are kind of rolling over to the downside. However, I wonder if this is a head fake, because if we were to get a trade deal and it were to include a large package of buying U.S. products, that could lead to a lot of upside potential, even though the bears really do believe that we would have a very difficult time logistically getting that product shipped in this marketing year. Cattle continue to push to new highs. Looks like a new record or new high close for the contract. Yet we are approaching that key 130 April live cattle mark, which has historically been a very stiff area of resistance. It is a big psychological area of resistance as well. As far as the hogs are concerned, really battling to try to carve out a little bit of a bottom here down at 52 in the April lean hogs. As far as news is concerned, we saw pork cutout values advancing a lot further than what we've lost here in the last few days. So that's actually pretty positive, and it could be a sign of a bit of a bottom in the cash market. And that could help us put in a bottom on the futures. I think we could get a bit of a bounce here. We are very oversold, but that bounce might be fairly limited unless we see Chinese pork values start to uptick as well. Once again, this is Ted Seifert of Zaner Ag Hedge coming to you from the CME floor.
If we make a deal with China, how will the markets react? Tyne Morgan talks what ifs with one analyst.
Here now with Brian Splitt of agmarket.net. Brian, when you look at some of the trade picture and the implications it could have on the macroeconomic picture today, kind of what are your concerns, and then what do you see as kind of opportunities if we see these trade issues get behind us?
Well, I think the obvious concern, first to answer that portion of it, would be that this process continues to drag out. And we've seen how the markets have responded to the, on again, off again type of a mentality as far as good news one day and then not so good news the next day. And we're stuck in a trading range. But I do think that besides the positivity of getting a trade deal and having that demand coming back in, I think that there's a possible inflationary undertone to all of this, because one thing, we've got some positive things going on domestically with wage growth, with PPI. I think consumer sentiment's going to turn around with the trade deal, and I think that could be that last thing to turn a corner on the consumer mindset. But we've seen things happening in some of the outside markets like gold, where gold had a major event of liquidation and has now recovered all of those losses, similar to what we're seeing currently in the market like wheat, for example. And so I think that could be a foreshadowing of some of the larger money managers are looking at. And with the trade deal, I think what would potentially happen is you will see the emerging markets, China and the emerging markets that all the tentacles are intertwined with, their currencies will get stronger, and thereby leading to a devaluation in the dollar. And I think that devaluation in the dollar would be that last match that could get struck to light the inflationary fire, so to speak. Okay, so the impact though on ag, you think a weaker dollar, better exports. I mean, is that kind of what you're thinking at this point, or what immediate impact would we see? Right, well, and I think the thing is we need to see money managers see not only the potential from a supply and demand balance sheet perspective, but also as an inflationary hedge. So if we start to see things look cheap, and we've got several markets that are near 10-year lows, and we look at wheat right now, and that's just gone down 50, 60 cents over the last couple of weeks. Things are going to look very cheap, especially when you think of the things that are important, which is food and fuel. So we've seen gold already have a massive recovery. Now, if we look at an inflationary trigger, there's a head and shoulder bottom on a lot of the fuel markets, and I think food would be next. All right, Brian, thank you so much. AgMarket.net, we appreciate it. Thank you. Stay with us. We'll take a quick break, and then we'll have much more right here on Ag Day.
To contact Brian Splitt at Ag Market, call 844-4AG-MARKET or visit their website at www.agmarket.net. Ag Day, brought to you by new Delaro fungicide for corn and soybeans. Achieve personal best yields.
Welcome back to Ag Day with meteorologist Mike Hoffman. Mike, it's just been brutally cold in the Midwest. I feel bad for some of these producers who are going through calving season right now, but some other places in the country, some producers are saying, what are you talking about? It's not that cold.
It's amazing, and there's been places that have not been hit by any snowstorm. Northern Indiana hasn't had much snow at all compared to normal, but Iowa, Minnesota, some of those areas, record snowfall in places for the entire year so far. And of course that snowfall will only add to the root zone moisture once it does start to melt. But look at the massive areas of blue in the eastern 2/3 of the country. That is where wet conditions are right now. We had all that rain in the fall and early winter in the southeast. Lots of this snow is going to melt on top of it, so wetness is going to be a concern for many parts of the growing regions as we head into this spring. You can see some dry areas out west, but typically they're kind of in the mountainous regions, Colorado, Utah, Wyoming, on into the Pacific Northwest. All right, here we go. Storm system near New Orleans this morning is going to track an area of thunderstorms toward Florida, as you'll see coming up. Storm system in Illinois is going to put some snow down across many parts of Wisconsin and Michigan. And the next system coming in out west, that's going to produce a lot of wind and also a fair amount of moisture, even some rain down into the Los Angeles basin there, as you can see. As we head through the end of the day today, the snow then is moving through the eastern portions of the Great Lakes, band of thunderstorms throughout Florida. That system moves east and you end up dry again as we head toward tomorrow morning down there. But you can see some areas of scattered showers for the southeast, even maybe a little bit of ice there, parts of Missouri and southern Illinois. And the next system with another one lingering behind it, already coming into the Pacific Northwest as we head through the day tomorrow. This is very cold air for this time of the year. It's still pretty warm, though, in the far southeast. There's a snowfall estimate over the past 24 hours, adding in the next 36. We're going to add that strip of snow across the eastern Great Lakes over the next 36 hours, and then we're also going to really put down some heavy amounts higher elevation, Sierra Nevada mountains, as well as the northern Rockies. Checking out the precipitation estimate past 24 hours, and then adding in the next 36. You can see parts of the southeast, Great Lakes, northeast, but especially northern and central California getting a lot of moisture there. High temperatures today only in the teens in the northern plains, 70s along the Gulf Coast. We're going to stay mild down here, lows only in the 60s, but very cold. Some negative numbers there tomorrow morning again in the northern plains, and only teens for the highs once again. There's the jet stream. You can see we're kind of zonal now, but it's already cold to the north. This is very cold air again as we head into the weekend for the northern tier of states, and look at that. That's going to be a shot of cold air for the eastern part of the country the middle of next week. That's a look across the country. Now let's take a look at some local forecasts. Heading to Bowman, North Dakota today, mostly cloudy, quite cold, high temperature of only 9 degrees. Texarkana, Texas, mostly cloudy with a shower or two, high of 61. And Cincinnati, Ohio, rather cloudy and mild, high around 56.
Coming up, how you may be able to get milk delivered right to your doorstep, again, next.
AgDay, brought to you by Precision Planting, provider of practical and effective precision ag technologies to help make farmers smarter every season. Learn more at precisionplanting.com.
Amazon is apparently getting into the milk business. Brand tracker TJI Insights reports the online retailer is selling items released under the Happy Belly brand. They are 1%, 2% whole and fat-free milk. There's also half and half, whipped cream, and 2 sizes of whipped topping. It says they're only available right now through Amazon Fresh, and the milk items are all lactose-free. Well, take it from me, traveling can be full of surprises. But this is a surprise that might make your skin crawl. Details in the country.
Closed captioning is brought to you by BASF. Grow smart with BASF. We create chemistry.
Woody from Toy Story was famous for saying, "There's a snake in my boot," but it became a reality for one woman visiting the UK. Take a look. The woman accidentally brought a python in her luggage all the way from Australia to the UK. It was found hidden in a shoe. The snake survived 3 flights from Queensland to Glasgow, a journey that lasted 40 hours. It's believed that the python went into hibernation and started shedding its skin during the long flight. Well, as you can imagine, the 72-year-old grandmother was shocked to find the 2-foot reptile in her luggage. The SPCA has quarantined the animal in Scotland. Well, that is the definition of snakes on a plane. Well, that's all the time we have this morning. We're glad you tuned in. For all of us here at Ag Day, I'm Betsy Gibbon. Have a great day.